I'm Bruce from Dirty Jersey, and I'm going to introduce the creator and stars of Patty Cakes. We'll begin with the writer and director, Geremy Jasper. Next, we'll have Nana herself, Cathy Moriarty. As Bob, Mamoudou Athie. As Jerry, Siddharth, Dhananjay. And last but certainly not least, as Patty Cakes, Danielle Macdoanld. So, Jeremy, we're going to start with you.
Sure.
Because this whole thing started with you. You worked on this film for how many years? 5 years? 7 years?
Now it's almost 5.
Yeah,
like from now, yeah.
What was the genesis of the project? When did you get the germ of the idea?
Well, I had been carrying around the idea of Patty or Patricia Dombrowski just as a character, never thinking I was going to ever be a filmmaker and make a film about her. When I was 23 and when I was living in New Jersey in my parents' basement working all the jobs that Patty worked, I was driving around town with my best friend who worked at the pharmacy, and I said, one day there's going to be a big girl from Jersey who's going to take over the rap game. And he laughed at me, and I thought, no, why not? Like this, she reminded me so much of my family, who have this like take no shit attitude. Not just the women in my family. The men are very meek, but the women are very strong. And so I always thought, wow, my mom has like the bravado, and she's kind of braggadocio, and she's a big lady, and she has no shame in her game. And so I thought, wow, it all just kind of fit. And then years later, I had kind of tried my hand at directing, and it was time for me to write my first screenplay. And they say, write what you know, and she just came back to me. And I thought, well, I'm about to have my first child, and reaching that time where you really start to get not nostalgic, but you start kind of analyzing where you're from. And I really wanted to write something about where I was from, my deep, deep, deep love for music, especially hip hop, which is my first love, and these women that I grew up around, and sort of a Valentine to them, yeah.
And before we get to this amazing cast, can you just quickly walk us through the process of how you developed it through Sundance? Because I know you were...
Yeah, I mean, I got very lucky in that my producers I knew for a bunch of years and had produced the film Beasts of the Southern Wild. And so they're, which is just a masterpiece. And they were kids when they made that film. And I knew them, and they said to me, one day we're going to make a film together, even though I had nothing to show for myself. They just believed in me, and that meant the world to me. And it took a decade for us to actually do that. But they really mentored me through the process, and they got me an audience with the Sundance Labs, which is just like heaven on earth. And I went there. They asked me how my screenplay was going, and I told them it was going great, but I actually hadn't written a word yet. And they said, great, well, in 19 days, we're gonna submit to Sundance. And I said, fantastic. And I had a newborn baby, and I was in the doghouse, and I said, okay, I'm gonna do it. And so I wrote that first draft in 19 days. I had been, thinking about the film for a year, but it was the first time that I had written it down, and we were lucky enough to get in, and that set it up. This film never would have happened without the kind of mentorship of the labs. And that's where I learned how to actually write a screenplay, or, I met all of my heroes, or a bunch of them, that really weighed in on it and treated me with a lot of respect and helped me through the process of how to make this film not 25 music videos that have been squished together, which is what the original drafts kind of felt like, and how to dig into this world, how to dig into these characters, how to find people that feel right for it. And then I got into the director's lab in 2014, and that's where I brought Danielle, Sid, and Bridget, who's not here. And I think we were the first film to ever go 3 for 3 in bringing people to the labs where you workshop for a month and actually casting those same people in the film.
All right, well, let's start with Danielle, since she's obviously a key player here. How did you find her? And then, Danielle, why don't you tell us about how you learned to rap?
Well, Jeremy asked me to come and do the Sundance Labs over 3 years ago now, and I got the script and I read it, and I kind of started laughing because it's so far from me that it sounded kind of absurd to me. And I didn't know how to rap. I definitely didn't know how to do a Jersey accent, and I didn't know that world at all. And he kind of had that faith in me that the producers had in him, because I spoke to him and I was like, this isn't, like, you don't know me, and I don't know what you've seen in my work that makes you think I can come out and do this, but like, I really don't think I can. I think he'd watched like 5 minutes or something where I played a baby killer, and I was like, that is really different.
That's where the Killer P came from.
So it was weird, but he just kind of had this weird faith in me. So I went out and I tried it, and it, we kind of went from there, I guess. And I practiced for 2 years to learn how to rap. That's kind of how I did that. It's just by myself in my closet, pretty much, literally.
Well, I think it worked. And then, Jeremy Zucker, you found Sid on YouTube, or?
Yeah, I found him on World Star Hip Hop, actually. He had, which I would check out regularly just to get away from my own screenplay. And I saw this guy on there, like, singing like Destiny's Child songs and Drake songs, and smoking Newports, and like, I was like, who is this guy? He's incredible. I just was blown away by him, and actually very intimidated by him. And I was like, this guy's really good. And about 5 or 6 months later, we got into the labs, and we had done some early auditions for Jerry, and nobody felt right. Everybody felt, I hate to say it, but they just felt like an actor playing this role, and it was like, well, let's go. I don't know who this guy is. I don't know where he's from. I didn't know if you were in the States or India or where, but I was like, this is the guy I would tell people if I got an actor, study him and just be him. So we just said, let's call him, and a producer got in touch, and he said, what'd you say, Sid?
I was like, fuck yeah, let's do it.
So he had never acted before, and we brought him to Sundance, and, your first acting teacher was Ed Harris, which was pretty exciting.
Yeah,
it was pretty intense.
wild.
What was that like? What advice did he give you?
Well, it's an interesting story. Me and Danielle were doing this scene in the car, which is yellow wagon or something. It was really cool. And I had like the line of the scene, and I wasn't getting it. And I was just failing. And Ed Harris walks in, and I'm like, oh my God, this is just not going to happen. And then I keep failing. And at some point, Ed Harris goes, everybody time out. Sid, come with me. And he just like pulls me to the side and just like speaks to me for like 5 minutes, and then tells me to go away and do it. And I honestly don't really remember what he said, but it works. And we do it a few more times, and I feel way more comfortable, and he just fist bumps and walks away. And it's like, yes.
That is pretty cool. And then Mamoudou, I take it you're quite different from your character as far as I can tell. So Jeremy, what did you see in him to play it, and then how did you go about creating that character? I mean, from the look down.
I mean, Mamoudou was brought in highly recommended by our casting director. And she's someone that I got to know very well. And if she said, this is your guy, like, that was going to be the guy. But we had looked far and wide for that character. He's so special. And he was the character who, when people would read the screenplay, they were like, really like this, but I just don't get this bastard character. Because he's almost like a silent movie actor. There's so much that the actor was going to bring to this role that the page could never explain. And he was, you know, that character was the big question mark. And I was nervous as hell, you know, because it was a major role that I didn't quite understand who this guy was. And so meeting Mamoudou at first for me was confusing because he's so different. You know, it's like, you know, he's this really articulate, kind of suave, Ivy League educated guy that I was like, this is very, you know, I grew up with a kid like Bob, and so like it was very hard for me to get it. And then he came in, and I think I made you audition 3 times.
Twice, but
Twice. Yeah, which is more than we ever did because and then
3 times, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think we gave you a guitar in the last one, and you screamed that song, and I was like, okay, this guy, this guy's got it. This guy's willing to go anywhere.
So did you get the character right away, Mamoudou, or
No way. No way. No.
How did
I
you
still
find
think,
him
I'm like,
then?
oh,
What was the
wait,
process?
it's too late. I talked to Jeremy a lot about well, I talked to Jeremy a lot. I remember during I'm kind of surprised you hired me. I said something. He was like, do you listen to any like, you know, like hard rock or heavy metal or anything? Like, do you need? I was like, oh, you know, I like Block Party. And he's like, well, this is not exactly what I'm talking about. It's like a very, very different band. But you know, he gave me some influences and just was like also very open to like any interpretation that I might have had in a moment. But like he also helped me because whenever I got like a little acty on set, he just like he just gave me a lot of like confidence to just like trusting like the simplicity of just listening is enough. So it was a lot of Jeremy's influence.
Oh, it's a lot of it's all Mamoudou. I mean, for real. Like I feel very, very, very lucky that Mamoudou agreed to do it because I think it could have gone down it could have gone bad. But yeah, everybody, you know, everyone I talk to is like, who's this Bob guy? Like, what's that guy like? Like, who's it? Like, he's fascinating. I think.
Yes. And Cathy, I would be remiss if I didn't mention that you were nominated for an Oscar for Raging Bull. I think you might get another one this year. I think everyone on the stage might get one this year, frankly. But you had worked with Jeremy on a short film before. Is that correct?
Actually, everybody else put in the hard work, you know, with the Sundance Labs and all that stuff. But I have great stories on these guys, really. But I had the privilege of working with Jeremy early on when he did his first short. And we went to Mexico City. And I hadn't met him yet because they were already there. And I can be a little last minute. But my personality. But so I get to Mexico and I, you know, probably have a bunch of kids with me. And Jeremy's under this tent directing this circus scene. And I literally mean a circus in the middle of a desert in Mexico City. And I was like, wow. So I didn't want to interrupt him. So I just kind of stood there and watched. And I was like, all right, there's my new Scorsese. And that was pretty much it. And we just kind of connected and clicked. And he goes, I have a script for you. I want you to read it. I want you to read it. I said, all right, well, just send it to me when you're done. I'm busy. And so he called me up, and it was almost a year later, and we had the best time making. And the short was called Outlaws. And it was with David Beckham, Harvey Keitel, this brilliant actress, Catherine Waterston, and I guess myself. It was just 4 people. And the Mexican circus. And they were brilliant, by the way. And everybody just kind of became really close and like family oriented, and everybody stayed in touch, and we all went to England and blah, 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 all that stuff. So he calls me, and I guess it was like almost to the year. A year later, he goes, Cathy, he goes, my script's finished. He goes, would you read it? I said, of course I'll read it, Jeremy, send it to me. And he sent it, and I read it, and I was like, wow. And then I read it again Then I had to read it again, and I was like, all right, this is keeping me up all night. It's a pain. But so he calls, he goes, what do you think? Did you like it? And I was like, I said, no, I didn't really like it. I said, I loved it. It hit me like a ton of bricks that I read it that many times. And I just got so many things out of it. You know when you watch a movie and it's like your favorite movie, and you keep watching it, and every time you watch it, you get something else out of it? It was that kind of script. I love the relationship of the three women. I love the fact that everybody had loss. I don't know if I love that fact, but it was just, there was so many interactions in it. And visually, I knew how artistic he was. And his development of characters was just so precise and pristine that no matter what it was, I was going to do it. And he said, will you do it? And I was like, I would be absolutely honored.
And then Bridget Everett, who's not with us, unfortunately,
my
tonight,
God.
but is amazing in the movie.
She's brilliant, absolutely brilliant.
Were you familiar with her work prior to this?
I wasn't. I'd seen her perform on Inside Amy Schumer, and was completely blown away by her performance. You know, she's a legendary cabaret performer in New York, like kind of a X-rated, I don't know, stage siren. And if you ever go to her show, do not sit in the front row, whatever you do. But she's incredible, and I saw her on the show, and I had been looking for an actress that looked like Barb, because I know Barb very well. Grew up around a lot of Barbs, and I didn't see anybody that, you know, was in their early to mid 40s that had that look and feel. I saw her face instantly. It was like when I saw Danielle's face, instantly, that's Barb. That's her. I don't know if this woman can act. I don't know if she'd ever want to act, but like, that's the face and the attitude. And like, I could just tell there was like a depth, there was a melancholy, there was a rage, there was a humor. And then it was just my job to kind of, over the years, bring it out of her. So I brought her to the labs, and she was very shy at first. And I think as soon as she worked with Danielle, like, she just blossomed.
So for the actors, what was the mood like on the set? I mean, what kind of tone does Jeremy set? Was it very loose? Was it, you had to stick to the script, or was it, much improv, or how did you go about it?
Why are you all looking at me?
Like, well, Danielle.
You were there all 28 days, so can you please tell us?
It was probably one of the, I've been around a long time, probably much longer than everybody here combined. But it was, I've done, I don't even know how many movies, some good, some bad, who cares? But this particular set, I just play a little old lady in a wheelchair who chain smokes, curses, and raps. So, but everybody stuck together. Nobody ran to their trailers because we didn't have any. But it wasn't that. Everybody just wanted to hear stories. I was I guess like the mother hen, and I kept telling everybody they had to kind of behave. I privately stalked Bridget because I thought she was so amazing. And we shot a scene, or her scene, I didn't shoot anything, but I drove 3.5 hours to see her perform at this place that I used to sing karaoke at. Not well either, but she was just so brilliant. And I don't even have a scene with her, but I had to see her in order to set my tone with how I would treat my granddaughter. Mamoudou, one day I just turned around and I just referred to him now as Mr. Method Man. Sid is just Mr. Natural. And Danielle has just always been my superstar from the moment I met her. She walked in on crutches. I don't know if you fell out of a bus. I don't know what happened to you. Hurt her ankle. It was the first time I drove into Brooklyn. I met you, and I had to lay down my little bit of wrapping of PB&J, whatever. And then they're like, you're gonna meet Danielle. And you get the little flutter and stuff. And she comes in on her crutches, and I looked at that face. I was like, I'm good. I'm all good. But when we got to the set, we never left each other's side. We basically sat on top of each other for 6 weeks.
I just pushed her around in a wheelchair.
But Jeremy's tone on the set, his writing is so, just brilliant that the character development is there. And he left it up to us then to bring it to life, which I respected so much. So if it was too much or whatever, he'd step in. If not, he'd just let us go. And then we established something in Mexico called a free one. So after he got what he wanted in the can, he was like, all right, do whatever you want. And we would just do one extra just in case something brilliant came out of it. And I just loved it. It was probably one of the best experiences I've ever had on a movie, and one of the happiest ones. Sometimes when you were finished, you stayed. That never happens, you're like, I'm out. But you kind of hung out just to watch other people. It was absolutely brilliant and heartwarming and unforgettable.
Absolutely. And how about for you, Danielle? I mean, you're acting in an unfamiliar environment, playing an unfamiliar character. I mean, how were you able to get comfortable to be able to inhabit that?
I think it was really cool because all of us were kind of out of our depth in a way. I had never rapped before and I was not musical. Sid knew music but had never acted before. Mamoudou is like the most opposite from his character as you can imagine. Cathy like aged herself up 20 years and Bridget had never done a dramatic role and Jeremy had never directed a film. So we were all kind of in the same boat where we were experiencing new things, and I think we all really supported each other and was so giving to each other for that reason. And I think it helped everyone kind of gain confidence, which was really nice. And Jeremy kept a really great tone on set where he knew what he wanted, but he also gave us freedom to always talk to him and feel free to do anything we kind of wanted to try, which was really amazing. And yeah, he never lost his temper actually, which is kind of amazing considering how crazy quick we shot it and how things go wrong all the time, and he somehow managed to keep calm and keep a really good tone. So it was amazing.
I was always amazed at the pressure that was on you because we all became a family, and then you have the higher uppers that are like, watching the clock, and that's going to cost another 15 cents. But Jeremy's demeanor, he was always just focused on us, what he wrote, what he wanted in his directing, and your calmness prevailed through what you put through us, that we were always at ease and confident because you just always had complete control, and it's beyond admirable.
And Sid, you seem like a pretty confident guy in general, but I mean, this is your first acting role. You're acting opposite an Oscar-nominated actor. I mean, were you ever nervous, or did you just?
Definitely. I was so nervous. I mean, I don't know. I mean, yeah, I guess like what made it kind of so easy in some ways for me is like having all of these people around me as this being my first time, because I think they made it seem like it was, they weren't like, oh, this is the kid who's doing it for the first time, It was like, you're in it with us, you're just doing it like we're gonna do it, and deal with it. So it was kind of like you're on the same page as everyone else, and everyone was so supportive and caring, and it just felt like the best experience possible for your first time. I mean, they keep telling me that, Sid, it's never going to be like this ever again. If you do more movies, it's never going to be as fun. Like, this is the best one. So, yeah, we'll see.
Sid was really awesome because I remember we had a couple of rehearsals before we started shooting, and I showed up for first day of rehearsals, and I was like, oh, what are we doing? Sid's like, well, I've memorized the entire script, have you not? And I was like, what? No? And he's like, yeah, page 68, scene 3, 9, 2. I don't know. It was just, I was like, oh, I need to step up. He did awesome.
Yeah, I just don't have a reference for any of this. I just thought that's how you're supposed to show up, or like, I didn't know how you were supposed to act on set, or like what happens and stuff. So it was kind of like one day at a time, things were thrown at me, and I guess that's when I thrived the best. So that worked. Yeah.
And Mamoudou, you have some experience kind of in this realm. You played Grandmaster Flash in The Get Down, but this is a very different kind of musician character.
Still a DJ.
It's true. How much of the look was from you? How much was from Jeremy? I mean, how did you find the
that was our amazing costume designer Miyako Belize, and John Carter, who did the hair, because that wasn't my hair. Like, that wasn't like dreads of mine. I couldn't tell where my hair began, and those dreads. I was like, anyway. But no, Jeremy obviously had a lot of influence. Like, initially it was going to be, I think, 2 contacts, but we decided 1 for a little bit more humanity. And yeah, I guess, and then we just kind of just like, crafted it together with Miyako. Like, when I got the boots, I remember I was like, oh, these are like really brand new and I live in a shack, like let's like put some tape on and like scuff it up a little bit. Just like we figured it out as like kind of a team. I thought it was really cool.
Do you remember the first time I met you? The first time I met Mamoudou, we were shooting the album cover, and he had the contact and the dreads and the taping boot and the piercings. I was like, hi, nice to meet you. So then we finish, and I figured he was the accountant on the set, comes in. I was like, oh, hi, I'm Cathy. He goes, I just met you. And the transformation was freaky. I was like, ooh. But anyway, so I just put my ski mask on and moved on.
And Jeremy, where are the gates of hell? Do they really exist?
Yeah, they're in Clifton, New Jersey. Yeah, the real gates of hell, they exist. It's like sort of suburban, weird New Jersey myth that, as a teenager, you have to take a trip to the gates of hell. In Clifton, you have to go down into this water drain, and you go inside, and it's really freaky. We went in there like early on, like probably 6 months before we shot, just to give them the feel of Jersey. And it's like and you hear stuff, and there's this legend that like there's demons that live in there, and this guy named Red-Eyed Mike who steals souls, and it's pretty creepy in there. Yeah,
It was really creepy, and they kept making me go in by myself, and I got really sad.
They're like, we need to see how this looks.
Just go in as far as you can. I was like, I don't want to.
It was such a difficult place to get to in Jersey that we had to find a substitute. That's why we went. So we found a place in Long Island. If you can't do Jersey, you got to do Long Island.
Yeah, well, speaking of Jersey, in addition to all the amazing rap songs, many of which you co-wrote, you have Springsteen on the soundtrack. How did you get him on board?
It was like an 11th hour Hail Mary. I'd written a lot of the screenplay listening to Bruce. It was sort of an excuse for me to get into Bruce, because growing up in Jersey, like, I wasn't that into Bruce. That's like that's your boss's music is the boss. And so you're kind of like, that guy, but writing about this kind of character and the sort of romanticism and that sensation of trying to get out, which I understood so well, Bruce really explains beautifully, or he's able to spin it into some sort of these incredible songs. And so I'd written so much to him. And then Chris Columbus, who was one of our EPs or producers, came in and said, I know a guy who knows a guy who knows Bruce. Or actually, he knows Bruce, but you have to get, the bureaucracy. And he said, let's go to him. Let's see if he'll give us a song. And so I fell in love with this song called The Time That Never Was. That's from the new box set that came out last year from The River, called Ties That Binds. And we just went after it. And we had cut the film. The film was kind of locked for Sundance. And there was this credit sequence that was very specifically cut to this song. And he made us wait till, like, we were supposed to send it in like an hour. And we were just waiting and waiting and waiting and waiting. And finally it's got the call from the Jersey Vatican saying, the Jersey Pope has blessed this film. It's okay, go for it. And it was just kind of like the last euphoric moment of post-production. Yeah.
And there's so many wonderful actors in the film. MC Lyte, great rapper in her own right, as DJ French Tips. Yep. How did you think of her, and how did you land her for
I just would write roles for people that I really admired and liked, or whose voices I knew. So Lyte, Big Body Bess, who plays Benzo, like, is a kind of hip hop hype man who I love and I think is hilarious. So I wrote the role for him. I'm trying to think of who else wrote specifically for it. Those are the two, Lyte and Bess are the two that and actually, there was Artie Lang played played Patty's dad, actually, which was a scene that we had to cut out of the film. But he was brilliant.
Yeah.
He was absolutely brilliant. And like Bridget, it was his first dramatic role, and he came in and we shot this garage sale, and it was beautiful. But those were the 3 roles that I wrote specifically for people. And you write letters and you pray that hopefully they'll come and do it. And Lyte especially, like having her come, she's someone that I grew up watching her videos, listening to her records. Like I know the sound of her voice is so special.
Yeah.
That she would come and be a part of this meant a lot, especially because of the subject matter, like everything. It was just like, oh man, it felt good.
Yeah. We have some questions from the audience, a few. I'm going to run through here. First question is from Ari to Jeremy. What do you look for in the audition process that puts one actor above the rest?
Oh, that's a good question. I mean, this film was so specific because it was about people that I grew up with and around. So like, I felt like there was a frequency that certain actors were on. And like, I would kind of close my eyes and imagine myself going into like the local, I don't know, strip mall, and like that they would just walk into the store, and like, would it feel like they would make sense there or not? I would just kind of, this film was so specific, and that's the thing with Cathy. When I first met Cathy, I was like, oh my God, like she's the one actor of this whole gang that feels like my town, that feels like my family. So I was always looking in this project for those people that felt like they would be actually hanging out at Lou's Tavern, and that I would see them like for a drink at night, for better or for worse. Yeah.
And what was the audition process like for each of you with Jeremy? I mean, what's his style like in an audition?
I didn't audition. One of our producers had seen something I'd done, showed Jeremy a photo. He watched like 5 minutes of me being a baby killer and asked me to come do the Sundance Directors Lab. And so that was my audition process.
Yeah.
It was like 3.5 weeks of intense like scenes. So it was actually kind of the hardest audition process I've done. But it was like actually filming. So it was unusual.
Yeah, I guess I sent in a tape, and then they were like, you should come to the labs. So I guess the labs were kind of the audition. And
Yeah, Sid's audition was really bad, but he said before his audition, he said, "Yeah, I guess I'm just another rapper turned actor," and that phrase was so ridiculous and so right for this film that I was like, "Just send him. We'll work with him. We'll work with him." Yeah, yeah. But his reading was bad, so if you can come up with a little phrase before you audition, that's always good.
Mamoudou, how about you?
I forgot the question.
Did you have a traditional audition process for this?
I
or-
suppose so. Yeah,
I think you're like one of the few that did, yeah.
Yeah, no, well, initially I was like, I don't know if this is right for me, but my friend Yahya Abdul-Mateen had met Jeremy, and he was like, you got to meet this guy. And the casting director, Jessica Kelly, was like, you got to meet this guy. So I met him. I was like, oh, can you please put me in your movie? So I auditioned as many times as you wanted me to. Yeah.
2. 2 and a lunch. A lunch is good too. If you get a lunch with whoever,
That's right.
that's always good.
That was the third audition,
Yeah.
right? I didn't know that at the time, but
Yeah. And Cathy, did you have to read for this, or since you'd already worked with him, you were in?
I was in.
You were very in. Very in.
All right, next
Sorry.
question. Rosalie Tenseth, also for Jeremy. Given your background as music first, had you known to submit to Sundance Directors Lab, or was it suggested by someone to do it who had some connection to Sundance, or did you just submit it blind online and get accepted?
I was suggested. I didn't really. All I knew was that my friend Ben Zeitlin had done it, and that his initial draft before the labs was like so wild that I think it was maybe unshootable. And then through going through the labs, they forced him to really focus what he was doing, and then he made Beasts of the Southern Wild. So to see that transformation, and I have very similar, I think, instincts or tastes than Ben, even though this is a very different world. I saw how deep they pushed him to go, and I just heard it kind of you know, it was all hearsay. But I knew that for me to get where I needed to go for these guys, I needed to go through that process because I was coming from music and music videos. My producers had a connection with them, luckily, and so that's when they called me and said, "You got 19 days." Yeah.
Question from Gail. The castings for this movie specified Lodi types. What is your association, if any, to Lodi, and what's your definition of a Lodi type? Lodi in New Jersey.
That's interesting. I didn't know it said Lodi types, but I mean, the film was originally supposed to take place in Lodi. My uncle used to live in Lodi, New Jersey. It's, you know, we shot some in Lodi, New Jersey. It's also where the Misfits and Glenn Danzig are from, and I was a big fan of theirs, and I thought, you know, like Bob especially would be a big Misfits fan. So, I don't know, Lodi was always kind of a big place growing up. I think there's like a blue-collar warmth and humor and kind of sort of a rough-and-tumble suburbia that I was looking for. So, yeah. I guess that's the type. I don't know. It's hard to put words on what you know, I don't want to, but like you just get like a feel for the people that would be from there, I guess.
And for the actors, since this is for the Screen Actors Guild, the AFTRA Foundation, when did you know you wanted to be an actor, and do you remember what role got you your SAG card? You want to start with Danielle?
I don't remember exactly when I decided I wanted to be an actor. I started doing performing arts classes when I was 12. I did dancing, which was fun, and singing, which I was dreadful at, like really bad. And then the acting, I fell in love with. And I think around 10th grade, I was like, yeah, this is all I'm doing. And it was kind of scary to tell other people that. So I was just like, oh, I want to be in the film industry in some way. But my parents was like, I'm going to be an actor. And they were like, okay. And they were really supportive. And Glee got me my SAG card. Yeah.
And
yeah, they
did you
tough
play on-
tot lead me.
What did you play on Glee? Do you remember?
Girl number one. It was, yeah, I know. It was, I'd only done like a day on a short film before that. And I'd auditioned for Glee 3 times, and I kept getting to the final 2. They're like, does she have a SAG card yet? And I was like, no, never. And then they were finally like, okay, we'll just Taft-Hartley her. So I'm very grateful for that.
And Sid, are you in SAG?
Yeah,
now,
I don't know. I think
this movie.
yeah,
You're at least SAG eligible.
Yeah, okay.
You must be.
Well,
He doesn't even know.
so
Go sign up.
I have no
you should
idea
sign up.
about any of this. I think
We'll inform him,
this
it's okay.
movie
Yeah.
was when I realized that
Yeah.
I want to be an actor.
Yeah.
I've never, you know, but it's true. Like making this movie and being a part of it made me realize that I've never felt like this doing anything else really in my life. So that you know, it was like a fateful turn for my life to be in this movie. So yeah, I guess so.
How about you, Mamoudou?
I think I went through like a couple of phases. I remember like when I was a child, like I was like 4, I was just imitating my sister, and I just ended up being on the track of being an actor. But I guess when I got serious about it, really, really, really serious about it in terms of like for the rest of my life, was actually when I was in grad school for acting. And I was doing this play called The Visit, and it just changed my life. I was like, oh, this is how I can sustain myself doing work like this. I got my SAG card doing The Get Down, yeah.
Cathy, what would have been Raging Bull, perhaps? Or
Raging Bull is when I got my SAG card, and they had to wait till you had 30 days. And I panicked for every one of them because they had 30 days because they could have hired somebody who already had their SAG card who was union. And there were plenty of other people, and they had to, I don't know the proper terminology at this given moment, but they had it on the 29th day. They said, all right, bring her up. You have $500, Cathy? I was like, I don't know. But and they brought me up to the union, and I signed up. But they had until that last day to replace me because the union wanted to know, why wouldn't you hire somebody union first? But I knew I wanted to be an actress way early on. And we had this great house growing up, and, you know, I'm one of like 10, and it was very full. So I would be the casting director and the art director and the costume director, and I would give everybody a part, and I would charge like, you know, $25 on Friday nights, and then we'd run up to the candy store. But when I saw Born Yesterday with Judy Holliday, I said, that's it. I'm going to be an actress, nothing else. And then my English teacher told my parents when I was doing so well in school, her personality's really big. She's got like a lot of them. Why don't you just let her be an actress? Because I never wanted to be one thing. And I figured acting was my way out. You know, I want to play a nurse, which I did. I want to be a doctor, but I don't want to be a doctor. I just want to play a doctor because then I want to move on and do something else. And I had a very big personality and I wanted to be many, many things. And this was my outlet. And I thought I might be good at it. That's all.
Well, I think you're very good at it. I think everyone on this stage is very good at it. And thank you for sharing your time with us. Patty cakes.
Thank you, guys.